we train about 15 psychologists. These psychologists have been observed by the Department of Education. And one of the most joyous message that I got, one time I got a call from the district, special education district in St. Croix, and they told me, because of these graduates, now we have served, we have evaluated, we have tested all the children. So the backlash that has been there has been taken care of. So these people in our community are making wonders. Other things also that VIUCEDD is doing is, when we talk about people with disabilities, now they are living in an era where there is assistive technology devices or services that would help them do things otherwise they cannot do. So we started talking and teaching them about assistive technology. And then a lot of them said, hey, look, I need this, but I cannot afford to buy it. So we came up with a plan to create a foundation and put some of the grants that we got into an endowment. We entered a collaborative agreement with Banco Popular, and now Banco Popular gives individuals a loan to buy assistive technology devices at 8%. The foundation buys down 4%, so individuals with disabilities would be able to go and buy devices that would help them work, that they would help them with school. So in other words, this device would help them to do things that they cannot do before. So far we have given about 100 loans. These are some of the things that we are doing in this territory, and I want you to know about it. Having said that, now I want to introduce our president, and I could say a lot of things about this president, but there's an African saying that goes, for that man who does something good, either do something good for him or tell about him. I cannot do anything for our president, but I'll tell you this. This president is making this university accessible. He is making people with disabilities to go to school and to move from one building to another building. Since he came, this university is now about 90% accessible. If you would go and look around, you would see all the ramps, all the lift, all the elevators. So people with disabilities can go to school now, and they don't have any reason to say, I cannot go to the University of the Virgin. Having said, I want to welcome the president.
Good morning. I want to welcome all of you here to this Voices That Count, 9th annual Voices That Count conference. I especially want to welcome and thank all of the candidates for being present. Your presence here make a tremendous difference to all of us, because it says that you are interested in the voices that count. I want to thank Dr. Hatis for his leadership of this center. It is clearly, as he indicated at the university, one of our most important centers, engaging in cutting-edge work that really makes a difference, not only in the university, but throughout the territory, as he indicated earlier. My remarks will be brief. I first want to apologize that I wasn't here yesterday when the conference was started. I was traveling and not able to come and greet you at the beginning of this process. But I do want to say, on behalf of the faculty, staff, students, trustees, alumni of the University of the Virgin Islands, it is wonderful to always be able to host this conference, and it is even more wonderful to have this, to have VIUCEDD as a part of the fabric of UVI. I do want to say that in this era, there is a pattern that troubles me. And that pattern was captured by a comment that one of the presidential candidates made recently, indicating that 47% of the population are victims. And regardless of how you come out on presidential candidates, and I'm not here to lobby for one or the other, but that comment symbolizes something that I think is so fundamental to why we are gathered here today. Because it is so easy to label people as opposed to trying to connect with them and empower them. And what this Voices That Count conference is all about is trying to ensure that we connect with each other, that we understand people, and that we make sure that we empower individuals. It is so easy to say that individuals want things and don't want to work for things. It is very easy to put people in categories that make them less than who they are. But what the work of the center has demonstrated is that if we are able to shift our policies around, if we are able to be more sensitive to individuals regardless of their status, then they can perform and be as productive, if not more productive, than others in this society. So we just encourage all of us to stop the game of labeling and engage in the process of empowering. And we empower by changing our laws. We empower by being sensitive to the differences that exist and not assuming that those differences are barriers that cannot be overcome. So I hope that the remainder of this conference today will allow us to really get to some very core questions. I hope our potential policymakers will be able to address how they can engage in this process of empowering and to counteract this process of labeling. I hope that the center will be a shining example in the future of how the University of the Virgin Islands is contributing to empowering all people within this territory. And I believe if others would look at what we're doing, it could empower individuals throughout the region and throughout the nation. So thanks to all of you for coming. I hope that your day here at the university will be a very, very special one. And if there is anything at all that I can do personally as president of what I believe is one of the most special universities in the world, then please let me know. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
And what a good way to segue into what we're about to segue into. A couple weeks ago, a group of individuals from the disability community got together by video on St. Thomas and St. Croix to formulate questions that are important to the DD community, issues, concerns. They talked about it for about half a day, and the result was about 22 questions that have been formulated. We have a box that the numbers in the box are associated with the question. Each of you is going to pull a number from the box, and that number is going to correspond with the question, and someone in the audience is then going to read that question to you, and you have a couple of minutes, how many minutes? 3 minutes to respond. The person who's going to be doing the moderating is Attorney Archie Jennings, who is the managing attorney for the Disability Rights Center, and also a member of our Consumer Advisory Council at VIUCEDD, Virgin Island University Center for Excellence in Development and Disability, VIUCEDD. Don't forget that. So we're off and running. Attorney Jennings.
Got something to do with Mike? Each of the candidates start by giving an introductory message to the community, and you'll have 3 minutes for each of you to tell us who you are and why you're running for a candidate as the Senate for the Virgin Islands. We'll start off with Mr. Gumbs and work our way back across the audience.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Joseph Wojo Gumbs. I'm number 28 on your ballot. I'm an ICM candidate for the legislature, senatorial candidate. Let me give you a little background about myself so you can understand basically how I am quite aware of what is going on with individuals with disabilities. I was the president of the Central Labor Council. I was also the president of the Law Enforcement Supervisors Union, Local 118. And as president of these organizations, I became quite familiar with individuals who either had a disability in the workplace and received problems by the government or the private sector not trying to give them accommodations. In addition to, some people receive a disability by an accident, and now they're looking for some type of compensation when it comes to their work environment. So I'm quite familiar with the problems that happen and the kind of mistreatment and prejudice a lot of people with disabilities face, both in the private sector and the public sector. So I'm quite interested in giving you my ideas about what we could do to improve the situation and listening to what you have to say. Because my slogan for my campaign is Your Voice Matters. And Your Voice Matters means I'm interested in what you have to say. Because if I'm going to be a public servant and I'm going to serve you, then I have to understand what you need. What are your desires? What are you looking for from me in order to better serve you? I've been a police officer for 30 years, so again, I'm accustomed of people parking in disabled parking areas and what problems that could arise for people who try to park with wheelchairs and other kind of mechanisms they need to get around in the public. So I'm quite familiar. I'm looking forward to working with you, with your support, come November 6th. So again, my name is Joseph Wojo Gums. I'm number 28 on the ballot. I'm an ICM candidate for the position of senator, and I thank you very much for letting me talk here today.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, I'm Ken Bernier, your independent Democrat for the 21st century. My position is first is love. First you gotta love yourself and love your people in order to help your people. Living in the Virgin Islands, I grew up with my grandmother that was a midwife, so it was a natural thing for me to appreciate what it is to be humble, to take care of people. That's really my background. I'm far-reaching. I think what's happening to our disability is an area that has to be, in today's world, physical aspect in respect to infrastructure, the technology that's going on, and how do we fund and make sure that our people, which are, I don't consider disability, I'm just saying everyone has the same opportunity to engage in living a better quality of life here. That's what my concern as running for the Senate. I think the funding is here. I think there's a lack of vision and focus from our legislators. That's my problem. We have all the laws in the book. The biggest issues we have now is education and legislation. A lot of the grant money goes back to the federal government again because of the lack of having the people in the right positions to assist, especially the university. What's so distasteful is presently even the budget of the Virgin Islands, the university wasn't even given a budget. It says 22 million whenever the funds become available. That's so sad as a community that your legislatures wouldn't even, since education should be number one. I can see why we have issues and other fundamental problems. I can assure you, I listened to the director, Mr. Yates, and the idea that he said Banco Popular, but I'm going to share some educational information why we should not have a problem. All the EDC companies that come here, actually the Community Foundation has $7 million sitting in there. That should have been to our young, our disability. We don't have the financial problem. The problem is we don't have the people that care about the community anymore. And until we address that, no matter what we do, it's not the disability people having problems today. Our senior citizens are dying because 30 years ago, a lot of our senior citizens retired and their income was $13,000. Recently, the government engaged in increasing the insurance 65% of our seniors, they're on fixed income. Someone has to look out for the whole community. My interests, my financial background, which I'm very strong in, I was the former Governor Turnbull's economic and financial advisor. I was the one that did the first bond issue for this government and got a rate. I know the funding is here. It's how do we engage in getting the funds to the people that need the funds? That's what my objective is, getting to the Senate. And that's with education, with legislation. With that, I want to thank you. God bless.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am Shirley M. Sadler, a big woman for a big job. And it's a big job in running for the legislature because we have a lot to do. We not only have to now do for the disabled, but we have to do for the mentally challenged. We have to do for the homeless. We also have to do for individuals who are incarcerated that are not getting any type of rehabilitation. We have to revamp the way we think. We have to begin to realize that everybody is equal and everybody, for whatever fault, deserves a second chance. And that's the kind of government I want to present to you. I want to lead the charge in making sure that everyone has a fighting chance to succeed in this community. When I first went to Northeastern University, I met a young man who was studying criminal justice. He was paralyzed from the neck down and he was in a wheelchair. He was my classmate. He used a pen in his mouth to write on a machine that he had. He got around with his wheelchair, and when we graduated, he was among the top. His brain was working, his body was dysfunction. He had nothing else less wrong with that young man than any one of us. And to most of us, he was smarter than most of us. And I have come to respect the disabled. I have a very good friend who says that he's manic depressive. And if everybody knows facts, man, you know you can't hold him. And I am saying to you, we have to start, like the president says, giving people their right respect. I want to start now. And I'm asking you to consider voting for number 22, Shirley M. Sadler. Let me be your voice, your advocate, and your strength. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and greetings and salutations to all. My name is Lawrence Rican Lee. I'm number 26 on the ballot. And today I'm going to bring my perspective in regards to the disabled. Being the former director of the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, I have seen many challenges and many individuals with challenges coming at the Bureau. And today, when I receive your questions, I'll be able to answer those questions intelligently because I've been there, I've seen it, I've experienced folks with disabilities. So my motto is truth and justice, and that's what I'm going to bring to the table for this territory. Truth and justice, not for one, but for all. And that's what my outlook is for this territory. Again, my name is Lawrence Rican Lee, number 26 on the ballot. I'm asking you all, November 6th, remember 26. All right, have a good day. Thank you.
Good morning. Morning, fellow citizens. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, fellow citizens. My name is Myron Jackson. I am a Virgin Islander. I was born into two families whose commitment to these islands and community service was part of my upbringing. I have also been involved in various activities throughout my life from a young man. I come from health care providers, a grandmother who's a nurse and a mother who's still living, 84, who's also disabled. And my grandmother also became blind in the latter part of her life. So I understand the dynamics of being disabled and the issues relating to disabilities here in the territory. I also have been engaged for much of my career in culture and historic preservation and the protection of our cultural resources. That's important in our discussions this morning because accessibility to our structures, especially our historic structures, has been an issue. Our urban towns and access, and on a daily basis you see individuals trying to navigate through our cities with telephone poles on sidewalks, sidewalks that aren't accommodating, and a myriad of other issues here in the territory. I would like, if I'm elected, to work on your behalf on my platform. I do address issues relating to disabilities, and that I would work with my colleagues and others to address your needs. My name is Myron Jackson, number 33 on your ballot. Thanking you for your invitation this morning, and I look forward to your discussions with all of us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. I am Wilma Marshman Center, number 2 on your ballot, seeking the Senator at Large seat. As we speak here today, it's nothing new to me to work for the disabled. As if you've read the newspaper, if you've seen the newspaper, if you've heard the news in the last couple of days, we have a major problem in the election system, particularly having to do with disabled people. Look at where you have to go to vote. I've been there seeing people come in a wheelchair. People had to go out into the street and work with them in the street. This is so wrong. And I have the struggle with working with a system that really, to me, doesn't seem to have your interest at heart, and that is wrong. So any plan, I see Dr. Hapti said that he has created a plan. That's ideal. As a senator, any plan that comes to the legislature, I would be more than happy to work on that would do all it can in its power to provide services for individuals who are disabled. So it's nothing new, folks. I should be out campaigning for that seat. My opponent is really only one of us, 2 of us are on that ballot, Senator Bassinger and myself. And Senator Bassinger has been there for many, many years. If you perhaps ask him what has he done, I don't think he can tell you he has done anything at all. But I say, as we speak today, in the news, I am feverishly working, and I seem to be the only candidate, the only board member, for that matter, the only board member who has taken up the matter of the disability, the ADA compliance. They're not ADA compliant at all. In many areas, the schools are not ready. The federal government has set aside some schools. They said, don't use these schools, you can't. But we have a system that says, we don't mind what the federal government tells us, we will do what we want. This needs to stop. I will fight for you. I am fighting as we speak. I ask that you please give me your support on November 6th. I am Wilma Marshman Sanchez from the island of St. John. I am number 2 Senator at Large. Remember, the only 2 of us on the ballot. Just 2 of us, Senator Bassinger and myself. I am not in contest with anyone you see sitting here at this table. Not in contest with one. So listen to us today and see the individuals that are seated here, which of them you would want to consider. But I'm asking you to look at what I am presently doing, and will do that until I am successful in seeing to it that the disability compliance is taken into consideration, and we can all, be happy with each other. Help those who can't help themselves. Thank you so much. So God bless you all.
We'll start with Ms. Masanta, if you would still read your number.
19.
Number 19. Please state your name.
Well, good morning. My name is Ms. Samuel. here to do to help improve education's outcome for our children with disabilities?
Good morning again, Wilma Marshman Santon with 2 on your ballot. What would I propose to do to help children with disabilities? The function of the legislature is to provide and make sure that there's funding that's available to support some of the endeavors that would encourage and build a community. Particularly, you asked about we're dealing with the disabled. As a senator, I will be sure that the plan that comes forth to the Senate, if there are laws that need to be created to support it, laws will be presented. But when it comes to the finances, I will definitely support every plan that comes forth. Because I know the plans are coming with good intent. I know the plans, the request for funding is not going to be frivolously used. What we need in this government right now is honesty and integrity in dealing with our monies. We don't have that. The public has lost confidence in the leadership of the Virgin Islands, particularly the Senate. You have, right now we have an audit that said that we have a $6.9 million that cannot be accounted for. And no senator wants to come forth and give an accounting as to where these monies are spent. This is so wrong. This is a sad scene. And it needs to be corrected. So whoever needs to be exposed will be exposed for mismanaging, misappropriating your monies. I will do all that I can in working with the Department of Education and with other members of the legislature who you will be elected, and hoping that we can come and work in one accord. What we need in the Senate is really a meeting of the minds. We need to sit and reason together. We need to put some things in priorities. We need to prioritize. We need to stop looking at ourselves and putting the money, the people's money, in pockets with holes. So I will do all that I can, and particularly for the young people. They are going to be replacing us, and particularly those who cannot readily help themselves. It has to do with monies. Whether we believe it or not, it calls for monies. The plans will come, like Dr. Hapti said, they submit plans. I will personally work with him. And you know, if I may say at the same time, you can let me know when my time is up, but I have known Dr. Haptis for years, and he is not in this because it's a fun thing to do. Dr. Haptis has always been involved in helping the disabled.
Warning.
One moment. Okay. He has always been involved with helping the disabled. And Dr. Haptis, you and whomever else, I would be happy to do whatever I can to continue having you do an excellent job. And thank you so much, folks. Wilma Marshman Santon, number 2 at large. Thank you.
The slips that you're given, leave them on the table. Yesterday there was comments that in the back they may not be able to see you, so some have stood up. You may want to stand up. And when I give a warning, you still have 1 more minute on your time. And it's your time. If you want to comment on some other comments after you answer the question of other candidates, you may do so. Because your time is your time, all right? Mr. Jackson, do you have a number?
Number 13.
Number 13. Ms. Keisha, you have the mic.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Keisha. With specific examples, how do you plan on making a difference in the lives of individuals with disabilities in the VI community?
Good morning. How do I plan to make a difference? In my introduction, I provided some illustrations. I'm very concerned about accessibility to our facilities, both government and businesses. that should be accessible. Much of our government agencies do not provide the accessibility to our population that requires, and that goes also for seniors as well. And I will move legislation, any additional legislation that would be required to make sure that they conform to all of the federal and local laws as it relates to disability access. Second, the historic towns that we navigate on a daily basis, both for residents and visitors. On a daily basis, you see visitors and residents in wheelchairs, motorized vehicles, the blind navigating on the waterfront throughout the town. I'm very interested and committed and will again implement, coordinate, legislate, work with your entities in making sure that the accessibility throughout our territory is addressed. I'm also concerned about healthcare issues, and in my platform I raise those concerns that I will work with my colleagues in the various entities, both federal and territorial, to address the deficiencies in our healthcare, especially for those who are restricted to home care and may not be able to, families who cannot afford to take care of their elderly and citizens who have disabilities that restrict them to their home environments. I will also do all that I can with the existing decrees that you presently have with the Virgin Islands government, that we meet those requirements timely for addressing the needs of the disabled here in the territory, both St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. Thank you very much.
My number is number 12.
Ms. Matthias?
In your career, have you ever hired or advocated for the hiring of anyone with a disability? If yes, please discuss. If no, please discuss why not.
Thank you for the question. My name is Lawrence Rican-O'Leary. I'm number 26 on the ballot. In my career in government, I've worked for 23 years in this government, and I have never had the opportunity to have anyone with disability hired under my tenure. If anyone knows me, I worked at the Motor Vehicle Bureau for 8 years. I was the assistant director and the director at one time. I had many opportunities to meet people with disabilities and engage in not only conversation, but to allow individuals with disabilities the right to obtain a driver's license. In July 26, 1990, President George Bush signed into law the American with Disabilities Act. And that act, being an individual who was in charge of an agency, especially an agency like motor vehicles, had to implement those laws that were put in place through the American with Disabilities Act. There were individuals that came to the Bureau that had hearing impaired and speech impairment. And there was no reason why we had not to allow those individuals to obtain a driver's license. And I can give you a story with one of my individuals that worked with me, one of the inspectors. There was a young man came for a driver's license. And when he came there, he was hearing impaired and speech impaired. And the inspector turned to me, Director, how are we going to give this young man his driver's license? How are we going to allow him to go on the road test? I said, we have to based on the American with Disabilities Act. We cannot discriminate against any individual with any kind of disability. And that young man got into the vehicle, and I told him that we will both go with him to make sure that everything is done right so that he can obtain his driver's license. And when he got into the car, he was nervous as usual, anyone, and we indicated to him, you know, by writing on a piece of paper, you must reverse into the cones to get your parking part of your driver's license straight. And when that young man drove back, he went through the cones and he hit the fence. And he was upset because, you know, he did not get his driver's license. And I told his mom, listen, have a few more training courses with him and let him come back. And by the time he came back, the inspector felt comfortable enough to take that individual out on the road test by himself. Why? Because I told him, go up and read about individuals with speech impairment and hearing impairment so that you can relate to that individual when you go on your road test. He came back and he got his driver's license eventually. There was also an individual with no legs, an individual who came back from the military and wanted to get his road test also. His vehicle was ADA compliant with all the different, you know, components that is needed. And those were my experiences with individuals with, you know, disabilities that came to the Bureau, and I felt good to know that we were the ones that complied with what we had to comply with the American with Disabilities Act. In reference to hiring, we never had that opportunity. No one ever applied, and you know, it was just unfortunate, but it was there in the American Disabilities Act for employment, and we had to if anyone came there.
Candidate Sarah?
Yes. I am number 10.
Ms. Smith, Josette Smith? She's over there. Josette?
Good morning, I'm Mr. Smith. Please discuss any specific legislation that you have introduced or would introduce that were or would be beneficial to the DD community in the territory. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Smith. Good morning once again. In answer to the question, I am not in the Senate, so I have not introduced, but my plan is to introduce legislation that will change how our children who are disabled in school are treated. I have a friend who had 2 Down syndrome children, and she's always in school fighting for their rights. And we have children that are being put in special ed, not necessarily because they are slow. I think it's because we are not giving them the opportunity to prove what level they are at. And I think legislation needs to address that we have to test them, we have to find their competency, and give them a right to function in normal settings. Now, some kids are right now functioning in normal settings, but not all of them are given that fair shot. And I believe that education is key, and every one of them, when they graduate, they should be learning. Not just pass from class to class, hoping that when they reach 18, they could give them a degree and say that they're finished with school. They too have to go on to college. We have to prepare them. That's what I plan to do. Thank you very much.
Candidate Vernier?
Number 20.
Ramathal?
Morning again.
Morning.
Recently, a TV2 report featured a young boy on St. Thomas being refused service by a taxi because of his service dog. As a legislature, how would you address and rectify such discriminatory practices?
Thank you for the question. I know most of the dogs or animals that actually participate with handicap. I don't know the specific word, but I know certification. I have a friend that has to travel with her dog on a plane because of her illness. legislation that's federally with handicaps, I'm pretty sure we got to make sure those particular standards are met locally as well, because we marry the United States system. My whole essence of disability, I want to say to you, okay, all right. The whole essence, I just had an aunt that lost 2 aunts within the last year, amputated all their legs, and I spent a lot of time in the hospital recently. Besides that, my mother went back home to take care of her mother, the lady that raised her that is blind now. So within the last 3 years, I've experienced tremendous a lot what disability go into. I'm somewhat into animals, so somewhat animals, as much as people don't respect them, horses, dogs, whatever, everyone has sensitive. My biggest problem here in the VI is we are not creating the infrastructure or giving the funding that is necessary to meet the needs of our people, and all our money is being outsourced to special interests. That's my problem. My concern is, why aren't we doing the things that are necessary? The great doctor here is doing something great at this university. My vision for the university is our juniors and seniors should be going to the school from K to 12 and use elective courses as a means of sustaining their graduation to go into our schools from now. That was the basic way we were taught 30 years ago. We are lacking the basic fundamental of learning. It's teaching each other. It's not about just this technology. Johnny still can't read with all this broadband. We need the simple fundamental of juniors and seniors at this university as a mandate. That's what I started off talking about. Our legislature recently didn't give the university the funding they need, and we claim education is number 1. I have serious concern the way our system works. So my view as a Senate with my colleagues here is to make sure that we utilize this university to meet the critical needs of our community. And this symposium today even enhance what I'm saying. When the good doctor says to us, Banco Popular, community funded, their money's there. It's up to them to reach out and assist this program. That's why you need a strong institution to go up against institution. That's the role I want to play, getting the resources in place, because right now the whole community is disabled. Psychologically, mentally, and a lot of our senior citizens are dying because of the financial hardship, and that's economic genocide, whether they want to understand that or not. I'm number 36. I'm Ken Bernier, your independent Democrat for the 21st century. I'll let you vote November 6th. God bless.
Okay, candidate Guns. What number do you have?
Number 16.
Number 16. Ms. Brown? May I ask a question first, and then respond to the question? And then whatever else you want to ask.
Good morning.
Morning.
Please tell us about your experience, if any, with the disability community, and what you will do to help ensure that persons with disabilities living in the VI live a happy, productive, and inclusive life.
Excellent question. Joseph Wojo Gums, number 28 on your ballot. The first thing we need is sensitivity training. A lot of people don't understand exactly how people with disabilities are trying to fit into the community here, where people do not want to take in consideration that they need some kind of understanding and also some kind of realization that they are doing their best and they just need cooperation by all of us. I'll give you an example. Again, my experience as a police officer for 30 years, I've came into many different kind of situations where it was evident that sensitivity training is needed. I'll give you an example. I responded to Megan's Bay one day, and they said there's a gentleman there with a dog on the beach. So I don't know if you all know you're not supposed to have dogs on maintenance pay. It was a little tiny dog, and this gentleman was just there in the water with the dog. So I came over to him and I said, are you aware that you're not supposed to have dogs on the beach? Now I'm there with the property manager for maintenance pay. The gentleman says, I have a permit to have this dog with me. And when he went to his vehicle and he showed me the permit, and he said that he was allowed to have this dog. He had a disability. So the first thing the property manager is going to tell me, he don't look like there's nothing wrong with him. Why he need a dog? I said, it's not what things always look like. And that's the first thing we have to understand, because not all disabilities are evident. So we have to realize that not every disability we can see out front. And I told him, that he says, I want to know what his disability is that he needs this dog. But I said, you can't ask a man what his disability is. He's showing you that he has a card, and the card states, and we have to also say, it doesn't have to be from the Virgin Islands, wherever it is, it states that he has a disability, and he's allowed to have this dog with him. But he don't look like it's a CNI dog. I mean, what's wrong? He can see, he can walk, he talks, he understands why he needs a dog. Again, I have to let him realize that he does not need to explain us anything. But we should also have consideration. Maybe the dog is a comfort to him. Maybe he was a veteran, shell-shocked. Maybe some reason he needs to have the dog with him. But only thing we are doing is making more pressure on this gentleman by trying to question him, when obviously he needs our compassion and understanding. So that's the first thing we need to let everyone in this community know. You have to have compassion and understanding. Because at any time, any one of us here who might not have a disability could get a disability. Amen. And I personally can say that I was in that position. I had to go to Attorney James in a disability rights center because I had a back injury and I couldn't wear my gun belt. And the police department was very hard on me, saying, we don't got to give you any kind of relief, you know what I mean? Not anything. So then I realized that, hey, people sometimes don't even believe you might have a disability. So we have to be concerned. We have to realize that it can happen to any one of us. So thank you again for giving me this time. I'm Joseph Wojo Gomes, number 28 on the ballot.
Candidate Highlander.
Good morning, Albert Francis Highlander, number 13 on the ballot, and I have number 7.
Mr. Mathias.
Did you guys hear me earlier? Before? Okay. Albert Francis Highlander, number 13 on the ballot, and I have number 7.
Good morning.
Morning.
As a legislator, what will your position be on and what would you propose to do about economic development companies that have promised to support programs for people with disability but don't?
Well, that is a very interesting question because I've spoken about this on many occasions. That is not really, if you go into a contract with the individual as a government, it is partially your responsibility as a government to make sure that contract is enforced. I think a lot of times our government has dropped the ball when we bring a lot of these companies and we encourage them to come in here. We give them all the benefits, and a lot of things that are in the contract we don't follow through on. And when we don't get these benefits, we say, oh, the EDC companies are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yes, they might not be. But a lot of times, if you're not knocking on their door and saying, you know something, I gave you 100% tax break. You said you were going to build a community center in order for the senior citizens to be able to, you know, have activities. You said you were going to take on X amount of students and give them scholarships. And when these things are not done, I look at that as a loophole to get out of these contracts. Because if you and I make an agreement and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're going to utilize that and take advantage of me, I say, you know something? In order for me to protect the people of the Virgin Islands, my job as a representative is to do everything in my power to make sure that contract is enforced. Now, I personally feel that the government they have quite a bit of contracts that we see over the years, and we hear all of these issues where you come back after the fact. Look at what's going on with our situation with Hovensa. where you had a contract in place for all of these years, and all of a sudden Hovensa is basically telling you, guess what? We ain't studying now anymore. Them kind of things don't really work for me. And if I have to take situations like that to court, if I have to make sure that you stand up and fight for the people of the Virgin Islands, you have to make sure when you sign contracts with people that you make sure that when you go in there and negotiate with these individuals, that you send comparable people to make sure that these deals that are fair. They're not always on the side of some of these Fortune 500 companies. We are a small territory. We live in the Caribbean. We have a population. Last census, they said it was 106,000 people. You know, which is unfortunate. That means we're declining. And when you are reducing a population, you're questioning why all of these people are constantly coming here, coming with these deals, and every time at the end of these contracts and when they're exposed to the public, it seems like we get the short end of the stick. And I personally feel that has a lot to do with the negotiations. It has a lot to do with the people you send in there. And when these EDC companies do not do what they're supposed to do, we, not only as the public and as the people, need to tell our government, look, you made this contract on our behalf, you go back and you get it right. Thank you.
Candidate Sarah.
Good morning, I'm Janelle Stewart, number 5 on your ballot.
Okay.
I have question number 21.
Ms. Benjamin? He's coming up. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
What will you do at the legislature to help raise public awareness that it's unlawful to discriminate against persons with disabilities?
Can you say one more time what I do with legislation?
What will you do as a legislator to help raise public awareness that it's unlawful to discriminate against persons with disabilities?
First of all, going off of Bojo Gums, his point, we need to have more sensitivity trainings for our employees. We have to strengthen also our mental health and disability workforce. Also, we need to go back and revisit our previous legislation. The last time we addressed any act with disabilities was in 1969, and it was brought forth again in 2002, and nothing was done. So we have to strengthen our legislation, improve our workforce. We need to work on our mental health facilities. There is a facility that existed when I was younger behind a car wash, and it's no longer there. So we have to educate. We have to channel more funds into our mental health facilities, strengthen our workforce, and revisit legislation that was drafted in 1969, the Physical Therapy Act. And these physical therapists are actually, they play an important role in the life of a disabled person. Again, I'm Janelle Sorrow, number 5 on your ballot.
All right, we'll go to round 2. Again, leave your, Senator Malone. You want to give you have 3 minutes. And your question, you have a number?
Yes, I do. I'm number 18.
Number 18.
I'm number 25, but my number
Number is 18. Yeah, Mr. George is ready for you. He got 18 and he's standing up already. Miss George, they're coming over here.
What proactive steps will you take as a legislature to get more people with disabilities to become employed?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Jordan. Good morning to everyone. Right now, in fact, just recently, because first of all, most of you may not know that I am considered a disabled person. I'm a person that has low vision. So I'm extremely aware of many of the issues, and I interact with the Department of Human Services Division of Vocational Rehabilitation on a regular basis. And one of the things the office has done and continues to do is to try to encourage employers to hire individuals with disabilities. How do we do this? There's a number of federal statutes that provide tax incentives to companies who hire individuals with disabilities, and we've done for this recently, maybe about 2 months ago, did an email blast and letters to many of these companies, letting them know about these opportunities to receive tax breaks to encourage them to hire a person with disabilities. And that's an ongoing initiative. There's nothing more per se that the Senate should do or can do, because laws are already in place. We simply need to advocate more for them. And like was said earlier, educate many of the employers about these benefits that would encourage them to hire persons with disabilities. Thank you.
As a reminder, if we can, check your cell phones, make sure they're off, so they won't disrupt. If people don't know, we are streaming this live, so there is an issue of noise sometimes regarding the streaming. Okay. For round two, we're going to pass the box again. And remember, your 3 minutes or your 3 minutes, we would appreciate your answering the question first, but if you want to comment on any other question that came up or you have some other idea, now's the time to also in this round two to go at it. And if you want to say somebody else is wrong on the panel, you can also say that as well. So Mr. Gums is putting down his paperwork here. He's ready to rumble. Okay, we'll start with Senator Malone at your end of the table. And if you want to go ahead and say what question you have, what number you have there.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have number 11, question number 11.
Ms. Stephanie Brown.
Good morning again.
Morning.
Good morning.
Please give some examples of experiences you have that would help you to advocate for people with disabilities.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. I believe I met with Stephanie Brown and the Association for Independent Living at the Whitney Center, works there. And of course, because I have my own, experiences as a person with a disability, that alone I deal with every single day. Challenges in reading material. In fact, that's why I interact with I meet with the voc we have folks at Human Services in the process of actually obtaining technology devices, right? Assistive technology is the proper way to describe it, to assist me in being more effective in carrying out my duties as a member of the legislature. So I also had family members living and deceased who have some sort of disability. And as a result of my familiarity, Ms. Brown, with this particular issue, and way of life, many of us, I have sponsored legislation which is now an act to create a Disability Act. In addition to advocating for employment for individuals with disabilities, the Disability Act is an act that provides a 20% property tax discount and all fees waived that DP and for individuals who would like to make their homes more visitable, or we would say handicap accessible, so that persons with disabilities who will become disabled throughout their life will have the eased burden of making their homes available, more accessible to themselves and those who may come to their homes, so that we can make their lives a lot more comfortable. Thank you.
Next, Ms. Monsanto. What number do you have? Number 3, that's Ms. Satori.
Thank you. Good morning. Governor Satori. If elected, what strategic steps would you take for dealing with individuals with disabilities in a territory relative to employment, health, and housing?
Again, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Satori. Wilma Washman Sampler, number 2, Senator at Large candidate. What what I do, I guess it would have to do with legislation. I would, and like what we're doing right now, I'm trying to make sure that the government, our local government, fall in conformity to what the federal guidelines are for disabled people. We have an attitude by the government right now that they will not follow or adhere to the federal guidelines. And this has to change. As I said earlier, presently I am very much involved, having to do with the ADA compliance, which is so that you are not deprived of your vote. That's a privilege for you to be able to go in and cast a ballot. And many of the facilities that are being used right now are not in your favor. And I will see to it, as I am doing as we speak today, working on the matter of being sure that you are in no way deprived of the privilege of casting your vote. And we have many schools right now that are not in compliance. You probably would hear about it before Election Day on November 6th, that some schools are not to be used. St. Croix is making a change in that, which is good. But I am working on that, and it has to do particularly, I am reinforcing that it has to do with the disabled. No one else, the disabled. And we must come, the local government needs to fall in line with the rules and regulations as established by the federal government. Yes, we have our own laws, but we have to fall in conformity with federal guidelines, and this isn't being done. So I will ensure, and I will continue to ensure, that everything is done by the local government and that mandated by the federal government to accommodate the disabled in every form and fashion. That includes the very impaired in hearing. The new machines and so forth should equip individuals for casting their votes without anybody's involvement. Even though you can't maybe visually impaired or hearing impaired, you still have that right to go to that machine and cast your own ballot with nobody interfering with you. This is the kind of thing that I'm working on and hoping to accomplish. I ask your support one more time. Allow me to continue the hard work, because it isn't easy.
Warning.
Thank you so much, and I want to continue working for you. And if others, you can check and see that I am working and striving, even to the point of not being involved in the election process as I should be, because of my involvement in favor of the disabled. And I don't say this lightly, I say so with a good heart. And may God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Candidate, just before you get started, I wanted to clarify one thing for all candidates and even the Senate. Federal law and Virgin Islands law, there is a gap. Employment, because under federal law for employment purposes, they only covers employers that have 15 or more employees. The Virgin Islands Civil Rights Statute does not include persons with disabilities. It does not track the ADA, American with Disabilities. So there is a gap. And therefore, some of these questions are put to you as to what proactive, which you should know where the gaps are, and I'm going to let you know so you can sometimes, within the context of your answers, address those issues as well. So what question number do you have, Candidate Johnson?
Number 2.
Number 2, Mr. Torrey again. He's the hot one today.
Good day. Again, Laverne Torrey. If elected, what would you put in place in the legislature to ensure that when employment issues for the territory are discussed and deliberated on, the issues, concerns, and voices of those who have disabilities and their families are not forgotten?
Okay. Before you give the mic, could you repeat it one more time, please?
If elected, what would you put in place in the legislature to ensure that when employment issues for the territory are discussed and deliberated on, the issues and concerns and voices of those who have disabilities and their families are not forgotten.
Thank you. Well, the discussion this morning is how we can address the needs of this population, of the disabled population. You are citizens. You're no different from any other citizen in that your concerns, your needs, likewise should be addressed like everyone else. The attorney just mentioned the gap between the federal and the territorial. As a senator, I would advocate, and I must say that on my platform, it is a platform issue for me in terms of serving the disability, the homeless, and the underserved. So you have my commitment that any legislation that deals with employment, across the board, that issues relating to disabilities, employment, and all the other issues that we're confronted with in addressing the needs of our citizens will be incorporated into that legislation and not left out. I think that, and I'm going to say this, and I think this is 2012, this is 21st century, that we're sitting in a room discussing this issue. I was here in 2008 and we discussed similar issues, and that we still today haven't addressed those various gaps and deficiencies in our government. I think is unfortunate. We as a community need to do what's necessary to address the needs of all of our citizens. And if we're leaving out issues relating to the disabled, then we should be held accountable for it as your elected leaders. I give you my commitment that I will do my utmost as your policymaker to make sure that your concerns are addressed and that the federal and the territorial, to the best of our ability, are mirrored. Thank you.
What number do you have?
Thank you. Ms. Sotori, I think this is for you again, number 1.
No?
No?
Ms. Cardi. Yes. To your left.
Yeah, Mr. Ali.
Hi, Ms. Carty.
Okay. If elected to the 30th legislature, how would you ensure that the workings of the legislature positively impact people with disabilities and their families? So if you're elected, how do you intend to make the people with disability positively impacted by your working at the legislature or the working of the legislature?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Carty. Well, the first thing we need to do in the legislature is sit down with all the senators so that we can put legislations in place so that it can benefit